Imagine this terrifying scenario unfolding right before kickoff at a blockbuster World Cup 2026 match. The bus carrying international stars has just entered the tunnel of MetLife Stadium. But instead of cheers from fans, they are greeted by guns and badges of the armed agents from ICE, the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. A major star is ordered off the bus, his phone confiscated to scan his 5-year social media history, and he is even threatened with immediate deportation over a paperwork technicality buried deep within Washington's complex laws. The opening whistle of the world's most captivating tournament, as it turns out, is being choked by political hands. On the surface, everything looks ready for the biggest football tournament in history. The squads are announced, the massive stadiums are dressed, and the iconic gold trophy is touring major American cities. In less than 3 weeks, the world will hold its breath as the Al Rihla ball rolls on American soil. But underneath that glamorous curtain, a troubling reality is unfolding that the football world has not yet woken up to: a slow, hidden compromise, an unprecedented surrender in history between FIFA, the self-proclaimed supreme governing body of football, and the environment created by its most powerful host nation. Today, on the 1st of June 2026, we will expose the truth. Did FIFA protect the independent values of football? Or have they officially sold the soul of the beautiful game to the United States? To understand how football was turned into a hostage, we must go back to the 5th of December 2025 at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. That was the night when millions of football fans glued their eyes to the official draw for the 2026 World Cup. Groups of death emerged, compelling matchups were set, and the entire world was intoxicated by pure sportsmanship. But before fans could even process the thrilling scenarios on the pitch, FIFA President Gianni Infantino walked on stage holding a box. It wasn't a football trophy. It was the inaugural FIFA Peace Prize, an award created by the organization just 1 month earlier. And the recipient? None other than the President of the United States of America. Infantino stood there, proudly declaring that the recipient objectively deserved it for diplomatic efforts and brokering ceasefires around the world, particularly in Gaza. But the football world thought otherwise. A wave of global backlash erupted immediately. Lise Klaveness, the president of the Norwegian Football Association, openly criticized FIFA, calling on them to scrap this Peace Prize entirely, adding that if they insisted on doing so, they should leave the selection to the Nobel Institute in Oslo. Australian international footballer Jackson Irvine bitterly stated that FIFA had made a mockery of its own human rights policy. They had every reason to be angry. Months earlier, over 100 civil society organizations, including Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch, had written directly to Infantino. They used the exact phrase, FIFA risks, being used as a public relations tool to whitewash the reputation of an increasingly authoritarian host government. Human Rights Watch's April 2026 report carried a chilling title: 2026 World Cup Tournament will kick off in a climate of fear. They directly noted that FIFA had made no meaningful efforts to use its leverage to push back on policies affecting fans and players. The diplomatic token called the Peace Prize was, in reality, nothing but a calculated bow by FIFA to the superpower that is the United States. But why would an arrogant organization, which usually considers its rules to be above national laws, bow so deeply to America? The answer lies in a hidden financial crisis, a secret that major broadcasters intentionally ignored in early 2026, the nightmare of the $625 million in frozen security funding. In January 2026, according to the plan, $625 million in federal security funding was supposed to flow from the U.S. government through FEMA to 11 American host cities. Remember, 95% of this massive sum was earmarked for a single purpose: paying for police and first responder overtime during the matches. Without this money, No city could operate the security apparatus for stadiums holding tens of thousands of fans. And what happened? The money didn't arrive. On the 14th of February 2026, the Department of Homeland Security's funding officially ran out after Congress failed to approve the budget. The reason for this failure? A fierce domestic political argument in Washington over immigration enforcement policy. Think about this madness. Just because of a domestic political fight completely unrelated to football, 11 American host cities were left stranded without a single cent of security funds with fewer than 100 days until the first match. Philadelphia was waiting. Kansas City was waiting. New Jersey, which is hosting the final at MetLife Stadium, was completely paralyzed in planning its police operations. The situation became so critical that on March 10th, the head of the House Homeland Security Task Force, overseeing World Cup preparations, had to write a formal emergency letter to the Secretary of Homeland Security asking where the money was. Why were they panicking? Because at the exact same time, leaked intelligence briefings reported by Al Jazeera warned of a red alert, extremist threats targeting the World Cup's transportation infrastructure and fan festivals. Homeland Security Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen publicly acknowledged that preparations were running behind specifically because of the funding delay. Although the money was eventually released on March 18th, after weeks of congressional pressure, the time gap it created left a fatal flaw. Security plans were backlogged, and drills were canceled. For the first time in history, a World Cup entered its final countdown, with host cities scrambling to patch together their local police operations. America proved to FIFA that while sports might be supreme elsewhere, in the land of the free, football takes a back seat to the political games in Washington. Let's look at history to see this blatant injustice and double standard. When FIFA awarded the World Cup to developing nations like South Africa in 2010 or Brazil in 2014, they acted like absolute dictators. FIFA forced these governments to sign inviolable commitments. They demanded exclusive exclusion zones around stadiums where national laws were practically suspended and only FIFA's rules applied. They even forced Brazil to change its federal law regarding stadium beer sales, a law enacted to reduce stadium violence, just to protect the commercial interests of FIFA sponsors. If those countries delayed a single stadium's construction, FIFA would threaten to strip their hosting rights, issue fines, and ban their teams. But when facing the United States, the fierce FIFA lion suddenly turns into a docile kitten. The U.S. government freezes security funds? FIFA stays silent. Congress bickers, endangering millions of fans? FIFA doesn't dare utter a single threat. The independence of the world's largest football governing body turns out to be nothing but a fake aura, a power that bullies the weak but immediately kneels before the strong. The human rights strategy that FIFA proudly published when awarding the tournament to North America is now nothing more than a piece of scrap paper when tested against the harsh reality of American domestic law. And here is the major reveal, the darkest backstage corner proving FIFA's total helplessness, a story our competitors never told you. Let's look at what happened on May 16th. While Gianni Infantino was busy reassuring the public through the media that the FIFA Pass system would guarantee visas for all fans and that he had personally and publicly confirmed Iran's participation, a panic scramble was happening behind the scenes. The FIFA Secretary General had to catch an emergency, secret flight to Istanbul, Turkey. The purpose of this trip? A critical, high-stakes meeting with the Iranian Football Federation. Why Istanbul and not Washington or Tehran? Because strict U.S. economic sanctions and visa policies had brought the issuance of visas for Iranian players, staff, and officials to a complete standstill. The FIFA Pass system, advertised by FIFA as a magic key to bypass all border barriers, was completely overridden by the security screening systems of the U.S. Department of State. FIFA found itself in a humiliating position. They had already confirmed Iran's participation to the entire world, but the host nation, the US, said, "Not so fast." The meeting in Istanbul was a desperate attempt by FIFA to beg the Iranian side to accept additional, stringent security screenings from the US, while trying to navigate the narrow loopholes of sanctions law so the team wouldn't be blocked at the border right before the tournament. The most powerful organization in world football now has to play the role of a pathetic broker, running around just to fix its own arrogance of thinking it could stand above US law. FIFA argues they are working within the system to achieve results, but experts agree. FIFA choosing a peace prize as its primary gesture toward the host government instead of deploying its supreme leverage is definitive proof that they have completely surrendered this power struggle. FIFA's compromise doesn't just hurt politicians, it is directly placing flesh and blood human beings in harm's way. Let's listen to the voices from within, the players who will actually run on those World Cup pitches. Jackson Irvine, the veteran midfielder for the Australian national team, candidly used his own name and platform to expose this hypocrisy. He said, "FIFA has undermined its own human rights policy. We, the players, are being asked to compete in stadiums where the basic freedom and safety of international fans have no formal public guarantee." Irvine wasn't speaking from a generic position. He was highlighting a bitter reality. While players give their all for the badge, the organization meant to protect them is busy shaking hands with political powers. And even within the US, not everyone agreed with this enforcement. Congresswoman Nellie Poe, whose district includes MetLife Stadium, saw this nightmare coming. She courageously introduced legislation specifically called the Save the World Cup Act. The content of the bill was simple and humanitarian. Block the Departments of Justice and Homeland Security from conducting civil immigration enforcement raids within 1 mile of soccer matches and fan festivals during the tournament. Her goal was to turn football venues into a safe sanctuary, where everyone, regardless of skin color, ethnicity, or legal status, could share the same passion. And what was the result? The bill was flatly rejected by Congress. No safe zones were established. The United States firmly maintained its right to arrest anyone, anywhere, even if they are holding a ticket to the World Cup final in their hands. And here is the mini twist. A direct threat to you or anyone planning to hold a ticket and journey to America this summer. When Todd Lyons, the acting director of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, testified before Congress, he made a blunt declaration: ICE, specifically Homeland Security investigations, is a key part of the overall security apparatus for the World Cup. Lyons promised to secure the event, but when lawmakers directly pressed him on whether regular enforcement operations would be paused during the tournament, his response was a chilling silence. No confirmation, no guarantees. What does that mean? As of today, there is no legal restriction stopping ICE agents from conducting raids right outside stadium gates. The danger doesn't stop there. Read carefully the Joint Formal Travel Advisory issued by a coalition of over 90 international organizations. They pointed out that border searches of electronic devices in the U.S. hit a record high. Now, when you enter the U.S., as a football fan, border agents have the right to demand that you unlock your phone, and they can search up to 5 years of your social media history. A political opinion post, an interaction deemed sensitive, or simply a photo that doesn't please the agents, could be the exact reason you are denied entry or sent straight to ICE detention conditions, places that just experienced their deadliest year for detention in decades. You spend thousands of dollars, fly halfway across the world to see your idols play, but what you might get in return is an interrogation and a pair of handcuffs. Are you going to a festival, or are you voluntarily walking into a surveillance matrix of a police state? In less than 3 weeks, the opening whistle will blow. The $625 million in funding has finally been released. Police overtime schedules are being rushed into organization, and physical security perimeters are being built. The financial crisis might have temporarily passed, but the scar it leaves behind will never be erased. The final on July 19th at MetLife Stadium will still take place as scheduled. A team will lift the trophy in glory, and billions of people across the planet will celebrate in front of their screens. But behind the glitter of the champions, history will record this tournament in a very different way. It will be remembered as a tournament of humiliating compromises, a milestone marking the day FIFA officially surrendered its independent governance to a host country. Football once proudly called itself the game of the people, standing above all political divides, a place where a ceasefire could be established just for a match. But at World Cup 2026, football accepted to bow down. It accepted to let the U.S. use it as a diplomatic public relations tool, accepted to let ICE agents stifle the freedom of fans, and accepted to stay silent before injustices just to secure the billion-dollar cash flow pouring into the pockets of officials in Zurich. In this geopolitical chess game, FIFA might win on revenue, but they have completely lost their soul. This thrilling backstage story has now been brought to light, and I believe you deserve to know the truth behind what you are about to watch. Now, the most important question belongs to you, the true fans of the beautiful game. When you look at this entire picture, from the frozen funding crisis, the threat of ICE enforcement, to the Peace Prize Infantino handed to the US government, what do you think? Do you believe FIFA handled it smartly to save the tournament? Or did they officially surrender and sell out the values of football? If you had the chance, would you dare fly to the US to watch the World Cup, knowing your phone could be searched for up to 5 years of social media history? Drop your honest answers in the comments below. I will read and discuss them with everyone. This is exactly the kind of conversation this channel exists for, to speak about the truths others try to hide. Hit like if this video gave you a new perspective, and subscribe to the channel right now. We will journey together, breaking down every hot backstage event throughout the upcoming World Cup 2026. 19 days until the biggest World Cup in history begins, and this power struggle will certainly not stop when the ball rolls. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next documentary.